Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. I'm your host, Steve Farber. Hey, you know what? If you go to stevefarber.com/podcast, you can actually subscribe there. Not only that, you can watch the interview, you can listen to the interview, you can read the transcript of the interview. We put it all together in one handy blog post for your consumption convenience. My guest today is Hale Dwoskin, and I am really excited to have Hale on the podcast. Now, that might sound like a disingenuous statement, because what host is ever going to say anything other than that?
That's right.
It's like, well, we kind of had to.
I didn't really feel like interviewing this guy. Who knows?
Yeah, right. But here he is anyway. Deal with it. Now, the reason that is a completely authentic and genuine comment is I've been a fan of and practitioner of the Sedona Method. And Hale is the founder of that method. And so I'm a bit of a fanboy, I have to say. So let me tell you a little bit about Hale before we dive in. Hale Dwoskin is the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Sedona Method, and the co-author of Happiness is Free, and It's Easier Than You Think, with Lester Levinson, his mentor. He's one of the featured teachers in the book and movie phenomenon, The Secret. Yes, that one. As well as a featured teacher in The Greatest Secret. He's also featured in the movie Letting Go. Hale is the director of training, chief teacher, and spokesperson of Sedona Training Associates, an organization created to promote the emotional releasing techniques inspired by his friend, mentor, and teacher, Lester Levinson. He is also a founding member of the Transformational Leadership Council, of which I am also a member, although not a founding one. It's a great pleasure to have you here, Hale. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the just kind of a high level overview and see where that takes us.
Sure.
So there are a lot of in that little bio that I just read. There are several, let's call them modest promises, like happiness is easier than you think, and
yes.
and it's free, and you're all about helping people to alleviate suffering and discover the truth of who they are. I mean, those are really big statements.
Yes, they're huge.
So what is the Sedona Method? I mean, to state the obvious, what's bigger than huge? So what is the Sedona Method, and how does it fit in with those great goals?
Well, the Sedona Method is a very simple yet very powerful set of tools that shows you how to access and master a natural ability that we all have. And that natural ability is to let go of the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs, the attitudes, the ideas that hold us back from performing at our best, from feeling our best, from great relationships and radiant health. And all of us have things we know we should be doing, or we could be doing, or we shouldn't be doing, but yet we're still doing. And
well, theoretically, I personally can't relate to that, but
I'm sure you can.
Yeah. He says as he takes another swig of his coffee.
Okay. Well, Coffee's not necessarily bad, but anyway, but yet there's usually something inside of us that haven't recognized or seen or dealt with that's preventing us from having more money, better relationships, better health, and recognizing our true essence. And the Sedona Method over the past 4.5 decades has perfected a system for basically getting yourself out of your own way and then getting the self out of the way so you can just be freedom or be fully alive or just be that which you truly are. So, and because it's natural, once you learn how to do it, you need the techniques less and less. It just becomes a part of your living experience, something you can do whenever you need to.
So this idea, there's the idea of letting go, and then there's the practice of letting go.
Right.
Right. So the idea is something that we kind of understand it, right? It's even in our vernacular. It's like, let it go. Just let it go already, right?
That's right.
We say that to each other. And then of course you've got the Disney movie Frozen.
Right.
With let it go was the big anthem of that.
Right.
Right. So there's a difference between the idea of it and the practice of it.
A huge difference, for sure.
So it's not enough to say, just let it go, or I'm trying, or the other comment that I hear people make a lot is, I'm really trying to let it go.
Right.
Which is a problematic statement, right?
It is. Lester Levinson used to say, trying is wanting approval for something you have no intention of doing.
So we shouldn't be trying.
No, we can endeavor to do something, but usually when we say to someone, if you examine your own direct experience, you say, well, I tried to remember that, or I tried to stop doing that. Well, you're either doing it or you're not. It's really that simple. And usually we don't say I tried unless we're trying to make an excuse for having either not stopped doing something or having not started to do something.
Right.
Otherwise, that doesn't usually come up in our vernacular. It just doesn't come up in conversation.
I find myself trying to quote Yoda. And the best I could do is come up with the paraphrase, right? Is there do or do not, there is no try, something.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yoda.
Yeah.
And actually, it's so funny. I was looking at something on YouTube today. I think it was Jimmy Fallon did a thing because today this was recorded on Star Trek Day. And not Star Trek, Star Wars Day.
Star Wars, yeah.
And all these hosts were trying to quote that and doing a very weird job of doing that quote.
Yeah, it is not our typical daily vernacular for sure. No. But again, it's kind of the same point though. So from a business perspective, the typical business person, if there is such a thing, we've been trained to believe that it's really all about the effort, right? It's the effort that you put in. It's the persistence and the drive through all obstacles to persevere. I mean, most of us think of that as a positive and necessary thing. And in some contexts, it is, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, effort is required at the beginning of any endeavor to overcome the inertia of not efforting, of not taking the action, of not breaking through into a new way of doing or being or having. And so effort in and of itself is not the problem. But where we get into problem is we are usually making wrong effort. We're efforting to manipulate instead of to guide. We're efforting to push against the world instead of working with where the world is. We're efforting to get our business to change instead of actually taking the actions that are required to make the change. And so the pushing pushing is not really necessary. Efforting, taking action, right thought or evaluation, right knowledge, that's all necessary. But the subtle manipulations we get into within ourselves and within our organizations often are totally counterproductive. Because if when we're genuinely moving in a positive direction, that what happens is there's a momentum that builds. People come to our support, both within our organization and opportunities from without the organization. And it relates to your topic, which is love is just good business. When you're operating from what I consider the natural state of love, even though that's not usually how most people see it, then there's this sense of cooperation and harmony and finding a solution that's win-win for everyone, as opposed to the manipulation or the effort or the struggle. And you have a lot more power when you're working from love than when you're working from effort or mind or resistance.
So the Sedona Method is a way of helping people to, the words I was going to say are just sort all that out, but that's not it either.
No,
it's not an
really
intellectual.
Not. Yeah, that's more thinking about it. It's a way to drop the resistance that causes us to not move forward. It's a way of dropping the anger that causes us to do things out of spite or to not do things even though we know that will benefit us or our organization. It's a way to drop our self-doubt. I haven't done this before. I don't know if I can do it. It's a way for us to drop our anxiousness or anxiety about producing a result or just going into a new situation. It's a way for us to drop the contracted feeling or the stress that we feel when things aren't going our way. And sometimes even when things are, we still feel burnt out by the end of the day because we were pushing through it as opposed to flowing in harmony with what was happening moment to moment. And that letting go, as you master it, what it does is it becomes a living aid in everything that you're doing moment to moment. And actually, in my experience, often because good, successful business people tend to make decisions relatively quickly. And the beginning part of releasing is just a decision. Would I rather keep struggling with this or I'd rather let it go? And business people usually go, oh, I'd rather let it go. And they do. So I've actually found that when business people, especially successful ones, learn this, they fly with it. They let go much more easily than people who aren't as busy or as engaged in activity as they are.
Well, that question, that choice, is one that most of us don't even know we have.
Absolutely.
Do I want to keep this or do I want to let it go? I mean, we don't even ask ourselves that question. I'm just thinking, through the course of a typical day, it's true in business or anywhere else, but let's just take a business context. How many times throughout the day do I find myself saying, I don't really want to do that, or I send an email and say, shouldn't have sent that. I was way too pissed to hit send on that one, or just feeling nervous about an upcoming meeting, or all of these things. I'll speak for myself. My knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, all of that's normal. So I just have to power through it.
Yes, and that's how most of us live.
Yeah,
that's absolutely how most of us live. We, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Right.
It's a great title for a book, but and yes, taking action, even when you're fearful, is often necessary. But there's something much more easy than that, and much more effective. If you're fearful and you're acting anyway, you're acting over the fear. So you have all these chemicals in your body that are actually causing you to contract, not think clearly. You're not function at your peak effectiveness, and it also clouds your judgment. If you're in fear, you're by nature of that energy, it shuts down our ability to see clearly what's actually going on in that moment. The same thing is true with anger. When we're angry at someone, we can't see that. We only think we're right and they're wrong and they need to change. But sometimes that isn't even the case, or we're reacting to something that they didn't even do. We just think they did it, or we've totally misinterpreted a communication. So, and yes, most people think that's normal, and it is what's average for most people. It's what most people experience. But in my experience, what's natural, I guess you can distinguish between what's natural and what's normal. What's normal is struggle. What's normal is suffering. What's normal, even if you're very successful, is there's a lot of wear and tear just getting through the day. And there's a lot of small disappointments, even if there are big wins over time. And so what's natural, though, is as you let go, you can adjust nimbly to whatever is the appropriate action in this moment. You stop reacting and you start acting. You stop overthinking and you just go to your clear reason and intuitive knowingness. And you act from that, as opposed to what you think you should do, you must do, you've done in the past, especially right now. But in general, in businesses only thrive when they effectively adapt.
Right.
If they're responding to what worked 20 years ago, it's impossible, or highly unlikely, not impossible. It's highly unlikely for them to succeed in today's world. Because so much, if you think about it, 20 years ago, so much was totally different. I remember transitioning from using direct mail to email as a way of marketing.
Right.
And at first, I was an early adapter. So at first, the response, I was getting the same, I was getting 1 or 2 or 3% on emails response rate. Which was part of it was I was doing the same on direct mail before I transitioned. I just didn't want to spend all the money, and I realized the cutting edge was email, so I jumped into that. Now, 1/10 of 1% is a huge response on email, but that's a whole other story. But if I was still doing direct mail or radio or TV advertising, I would have gone out of business. So, a lot of us don't realize that we're responding to what was as opposed to what is. And that's especially, it's never really constructive in any part of your life, your relationships, your health, your well-being, all of it. Responding to what was is not very effective, but you get immediate feedback in business. If you're responding to conditions that aren't in this moment, then your chances go down exponentially the more you're doing that in actually succeeding. But when you clear your mind by letting go, then you can actually have a clear opening to see, well, wait a minute. I just recently read this article about a totally different way of doing this. I read something in Barron's, and it said there's this whole new trend. Now, do I want to wait until that trend is over, or do I want to explore if I can capitalize on it?
Right.
Now, if you're hesitant, if you're feeling stressful, you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling doubt, you might go, well, what I'm doing is working. I don't want to rock the boat. Or I don't know how I would make the transition. There's so many rational considerations the mind comes up with that prevents us from moving forward. But every time you let go of this, the contraction we feel when we're insecure or angry or don't know what to do, or we're feeling stressful, then we immediately see more possibilities. We immediately are in action as opposed to thinking about it or trying.
We're in action, not experiencing inaction.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So it seems to me that our current environment, we're experiencing the increasing, again, making the distinction between normal and natural, the increasing normalization of anger and judgment and polarization.
Yes.
I mean, we're seeing that to a greater degree than we ever have before. And as each day goes by, that seems more and more normal.
Yes, but it's not natural and it's not healthy, both for us as a society and for us as individuals. If we think we have the only right perspective, or our point of view is the only point of view, we're definitely going to get into trouble.
Yeah.
And what happens when you let go is you see it from a broader perspective. The more you let go, the broader your perspective gets. So would you rather be surveying the landscape of your business environment from ground level or from mountaintop level?
Right.
Which do you think would be a more effective way of viewing your business environment? Or would you like to go all the way out to satellite level? Because you can do that when you let go. When you let go, you start to see, oh my God, I can see that trend is coming. And you go, okay, let's work backwards. If that trend is coming and I can see, again, I have a sense of when that's going to be here, what can I do to prepare for that?
So really, it's about our knee-jerk reaction, maybe conditioned reaction.
Yes,
is we see, for example, a trend or some opportunity emerging, and we have, even though we would like to think that we can rationally sort things out and look at it on the completely kind of pros and cons intellectual analysis of blah blah blah, we have an emotional reaction to it on some level.
Yes.
Either it scares us or it excites us. If I get really excited about a trend and I get hooked into that excitement, that can lead me down a wrong path just as much as being.
Oh yes. Well, I know you've heard this expression in Wall Street. The bears and the bulls make money. The pigs get slaughtered.
Right.
So when we get into lust, when we get so excited that we lose discernment that about our timing or about whether our excitement may or may not be warranted, when you can let go of the lust and stay focused on what is actually real, then you take real actions that produce real results, as opposed to wishful thinking. Even the best businesses are partially based on wishful thinking. And wishful thinking often doesn't come out the way we wish it would.
Right.
But you can certainly plan for several potential outcomes and be prepared for it. But if you aren't looking at the big picture and you're just reacting, then it's much more hit and miss.
So you said earlier this wonderful question: would I prefer to be this or let it go?
Right.
The question that we don't often ask ourselves. That, to me, is kind of getting at the essence of what the Sedona Method is, right? I mean, it's giving ourselves that choice.
Yes, that's one of that's a core essence of the basics of the Sedona Method. we, in this moment, we have the choice to continue to be run by what was or what might be, or we can actually deal with what is. We have the choice to look back or look forward as opposed to look at what's actual. We have the choice to let go of whatever internal burden we're carrying around from our past failures, from our disappointments, from our lack of confidence, from just the stress of the environment. You mentioned all the tension in the environment right now. That tension affects everything. But you can opt out of that inwardly. You can still have your own point of view, and you can still respond knowing where people are at. But if you're reacting to everyone else's reactions, then you get swept up in the craziness.
And not only reacting to their reactions, but reacting to what you anticipate their reactions would be, even though they haven't reacted that way. Exactly. And we start making stuff up based on
totally
judgments.
We don't realize how much we're doing that.
Yeah.
Most of what we experience is made up.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm a particularly creative guy, so you can imagine.
We all are.
So you can imagine what that's like. So do I need to believe that I have that choice?
No.
In order to make this work? Because, there are going to be some people that are listening to this and saying, well, I hear what you're saying, but I don't have that choice. I get completely locked up in this, and it is what it is.
Well, yes, but have you ever not been able to do something, but once you learned a new skill, you were able to?
That's the whole idea of learning a new skill.
Exactly. So this is even actually easier than that, because we come in with already being able to do this. Young children do this naturally. If you've ever been around young children, you've probably seen a young child fall down and look around to see if they need to be upset. They don't think that way, but they do that. And if they catch someone's eye, they generate an upset immediately. As soon as they get the kiss they were looking for stubbing their toe, they're fine. It's like nothing ever happened. And children they don't cling to things like we do as an adult. Yet children are doing this unconsciously. It's natural for them. So we as adults train it out of them. Not intentionally. We don't realize we're doing it. We're training them to be the way we think everything is. We're not, there's no maliciousness in it.
So how do we, what's an example of how we train that out of kids?
Oh, one of the ways we do that is is by example. When mom and dad don't let go, then the child goes, well, that must be safer. I want to keep getting fed and clothed and have a roof over my head. So maybe I need to model after mom and dad. They are angry at each other a lot. They don't seem to let go of it, but it seems to be working for them. Maybe. And so I think I'll just choose sides. I'll be for dad or I'll be for mom. And we'll fight dad together or mom together. It's things like that. And most of that, of course, is going on unconsciously.
Right.
But in order to be safe, we model often around the dysfunction in our environment. And young children are very good at modeling because that's all they know. And so they're modeling after us. That's one of the main ways they do it.
So I don't need to believe that I have that choice in order to make that choice, but I do need to believe it, or I need to see the promise in it enough to give it a try.
Exactly. Yes, you need to be open to it. I actually, in all our programs, we encourage people to not believe a word we say, but to be open to it, take it for checking, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, don't do it. If it does, do it some more and then see where it leads you. Because you'll find from your own direct experience, when you let go, things work out better. You feel better. Things are easier. That's usually enough motivation. Again, I know your audience is many of your people in your audience are business focused. Business people are pretty adaptable when it comes to that. They're, hey, this is something that works. I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
Yeah, we don't go, hey, this works, but I'm going to stop doing it. I'm tired of doing what works. I'm going to see if I can find something that doesn't work.
Right. This is working too well.
This is working too well. I'm making too much money from this. Let's stop doing this.
Right. I feel a little too good today.
That's right. Not too many people wake up and or go through the day going, it's just this day is going too smoothly. There are too many yeses coming in on deals I've been trying to put together, and people are accepting offers or they're making offers. I mean, that's terrible. I don't want to have more of that.
Well, it's funny. We're kind of cutting up on it, but there is an element of truth to that. It's like things are going so well, something must be wrong.
Exactly.
I think that is a fairly common.
No, that's a very, very common belief. We feel uncomfortable when things are smooth. We feel more comfortable when I'm pushing the rock up a hill, even though I know that's not working. At least I'm efforting. I can say I worked really hard today. I tried really hard to get something done. And, it's not my fault it didn't work.
Right. I did what I was supposed to do.
That's right.
And it's kind of like we were talking about earlier. We conflate or confuse that kind of pushing the rock up the mountain sort of effort with success.
Yes. Yes.
But there's nothing beats the feeling of being at the top of the mountain and just letting the boulder go down the other side versus pushing it up.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Except often the solution is not in the direction we're trying to push the rock in. Otherwise, the rock would be naturally flowing in that direction. It's like when you swim, it's like swimming against the current. There are currents in business. There are currents in life too, but there are currents in business. That things are flowing in a particular way, and it's much more effective to notice the current and go with the current as opposed to trying to swim against the current. When you try to swim against the current, often it doesn't work out that well. And also, Einstein said, if you keep doing something that's not working, but expecting a different result, that's a definition of insanity.
Right.
I messed up the quote. I think he said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing that isn't working and expecting a different result.
Right. Yeah, we do the same thing to Einstein that we do to Yoda.
Yeah, I know. We change it.
Yeah. So, in a little bit, I'd love for you to give us a taste.
Sure.
Of the Sedona Method, but before you do that, can you talk a little bit about the history? Because this isn't something that you developed from the ground up, right? This is something.
No. I was very fortunate. I met Lester Levinson, the man that we mentioned in passing, when I was very young, and I was very impressed with him. And part of it was his story. He was a businessman, entrepreneur, very successful, but he was a physical and emotional basket case. He was sent home to die from a second coronary. And he had ulcers, he had diverticulitis, he had jaundice several times a year, he had migraine headaches, and he had gone to therapy with an associate of Freud, who, after a certain amount of time trying to help him, said, "Lester, I'm sorry, some people can't be helped." So he was a physical, emotional, and physical mess. But when the doctor sent him home to die, to his Central Park South penthouse, again, he was successful. He said, "Lester, for a smart boy, you are stupid, stupid, stupid." If the answers were in my mind, or in he'd studied psychology, he'd studied business, he'd studied engineering, he'd studied physics, and none of that seemed to give him what he wanted. And so he went back to the lab within himself, and he started to really study how his body mind worked. And he discovered that what was clogging the works was his unresolved thoughts and feelings from the past, and he could let those go. And as he did that, he entered a state of profound peace that he lived in another 42 years after the doctors gave him weeks to live, and his body completely healed. He didn't have illness again until the very end of his life, 42 years. Actually, the illness started again 40 years later. Instead of weeks, he ended up with an extra 40 years. So when I met Lester, I was very moved by who he was and how he was as a person. And so I decided to get involved. And before I was even done with the program, I intuitively knew that this is what my life's work. And I was only 22.
Wow.
I'm now 66. Been doing it a while.
Yeah.
And later on, Lester turned his copyrights over to me in the early 90s and asked me to continue the work. And I've been, a few years before he passed away. And then I've been doing the work ever since, and it's been evolving in very powerful ways. And it's helped a lot of people. So it's based on a very solid history. And it's also based on the experience of hundreds of thousands of people all over the world doing it effectively, including many successful entrepreneurs.
And you teach this. I mean, it is very simple, but yet you have a lot of different programs and experiences, like retreats and audios and all kinds of ways for people to get access to it. I know that because you lived in my ears for several years as I was learning this through your audio programs, probably starting 10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
Or a little longer than that. So although it is really easy to learn, I mean, it's like anything else, it takes practice, right?
Oh, yes. Just like anything in life, if you expect your muscles to get stronger without doing anything with them, it's not going to happen. Practice and direct experience helps build any skill that you're trying to build. So the reason there are numerous programs is we have programs focusing on goals. We have programs focusing on love and relationships. We have programs focusing on a host of different topics of how to apply this same set of tools to those specific circumstances. Mm-hmm. And then we also have programs. There are people who do the Sedona Method, not so much to be more effective in life, but to transcend the limited, contracted state that most of us live in, and to live from a happier, more open, alive state. And so there are programs for that too. And they all employ the same set of tools, but it's just on different topics.
Gotcha. So could you give us a little taste of that?
Oh, absolutely. So again, now I warn you in advance, what we're about to do, this process, is incredibly simple. And it's really just the very, very beginnings of the Sedona Method. But part of the reason it's as powerful as it is because it's simple. Young children don't even need to do what we have to do. As adults, we need a process. But anyway, let me first describe what I mean by letting go, so it's really clear to all of us. Pick up a pen or a pencil or any object that you'd be willing to drop to your desk, to the floor. And if you're listening to this in a car, just imagine this. So for the sake of this analogy, this object represents your limiting thoughts and feelings and beliefs and ideas. and emotions. And your hand represents your gut or your awareness. Now, grip the object really tightly with your hand. Now, if we did this long enough, it would start to feel uncomfortable, but also really familiar. But that's enough. Open your hand and roll the object around in your hand. Now, is this object attached to your hand? Obviously not. But if you think about how you respond, we talked earlier about you might not realize you have a choice. Well, this is where it comes in. It's even in our language. When we feel angry, we don't say I feel angry usually. We say I'm angry. I am the anger. We don't even realize we're doing it. Or if we feel sad, we don't say I feel sad. We say I'm sad.
Right. I'm identifying with it.
We identify with it. So we forget that that it isn't attached to us. But every emotion and thought, feeling, or limiting belief is attached to this, to you as this object's attached to your hand. So turn your hand upside down, and could you just let go of the object? That's what we mean by letting go. That's just a choice. And we always have a choice. No matter how justified an emotion has, no matter how long you've had it, no matter why you think you need to hold on to it, it is a choice to let it go. And you can always choose it if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can choose to hold on to. We often do that, and that's fine. So there's a very simple process that I'll explain first, and then I'll actually take us through an experience of. And so if you're stressed about a decision, if you're angry at a coworker or a peer or your boss or yourself, or you have a goal that you're wanting to achieve, but you're feeling limited, internally limited about achieving the goal. If you're just feeling anxious or sad or lonely or depressed, you start with that. And so what you do is you just notice how you're feeling and you allow it to be there. You welcome it as best you can. Be present with it. And then we use these questions. And the first question is, could you let it go? Now, if you were able to drop that pen, then I know you can. Now, even if you just imagine dropping a pen or whatever the object was, I know you can. You've dropped things before. And then the next question is, would you? And would you just means, are you willing to? And if you're ever not sure, just ask yourself, would I rather hold on to this pain, this suffering, this limitation, or would I rather be free and have my goals? Usually the choice is easy. And the last question is when? And when is just an invitation to decide to do it now. And you may find you let go a little on could you let it go? You may find you let go a little on would you? And you may find you let go most on when, or it may be a combination thereof. It doesn't matter. And the only thing I recommend you do for this is just stay open to it with as little inner debate as possible. Just stick with yes or no. And by the way, you may find yourself saying no during this process, and a release will happen anyway, just because you were being honest. And often honesty produces a release as part of this. So allow yourself to think of, and so let's do this now. I'm going to do it with everyone. You don't, right. Steve, you don't need to say anything. You can just do the process with everybody else. So in this moment, allow yourself to think of something in your life that you're either wanting to change or improve. Doesn't matter what it is. And then allow yourself to notice how you feel about it as best you can. And could you just allow that? Be present with it. Notice it. And then in this moment, as best you can, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? Now, if you were not overthinking it, you probably already noticed something start to shift. But remember, we have a lifetime of practice of holding on. So to get in touch again with that natural ability, it might take a little more practice. So let's do it 1 or 2 more times. Again, focus on the same thing or anything else in your life that you're wanting to change or improve. And then could you just allow however you feel? Notice it. Be present with it. And then as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? And let's just do that one more time. You may have noticed a shift again, but let's go further. In this moment, again, focus on that same thing or anything else that you're wanting to change or improve, and just be present with the feeling as best you can. And then as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? Okay, good. So if you were doing this on your own, you could use, again, this is just the basic first step. But if you were doing this on your own, you would keep asking those same questions until you got the relief that you wanted, and be open to the possibility that it can be this direct and simple. It's the only reason it isn't right now is you haven't done it before, at least not in this way. So experiment with it, see where it leads you.
So in a in a practical application of that throughout the course of the day. So let's say I'm I'm at my computer. I get an email that's something with a message I didn't want to hear.
Right.
Speaking kind of generically, but we've all had, that kind of a thing. And I feel an emotional response. Are you saying that if I'm aware enough in that moment and noticing how I'm responding to it, that I could actually just stop for a minute and take myself through that process?
Yes. And then you'll probably responded more appropriately. Or you'll forward the email to somebody else and tell them how to respond appropriately. Yeah, absolutely. Or say someone, say you're working on a project and you're brainstorming about how to put all the pieces together, and you're feeling frustrated because you're not able to see clearly what's the next step.
Right.
You can use it right then. Or say you're about to get on the phone to make a call that you're dreading.
Right.
You can use it then. Say you just had a call that didn't go the way you wanted to. You can use it then.
What about right in the middle of the call?
Absolutely. As you get good at this, you get to the point where you can let go without needing to use the questions. Because you've experienced the letting go experience enough, you can go right to it. And you can let go right in the middle of a business meeting, right in the middle of a call, right in the middle of about to open your mouth and insert your foot, if not your leg.
Right.
You can catch yourself, let go, and notice an immediate difference.
Right. So if I'm in the middle of say a contentious face-to-face meeting, it's not like saying, okay, Hale, you and I are having a spirited debate and it's pissing me off. Yeah. I'm not going to go like, wait, hold on. Okay, can I allow myself?
No, absolutely not.
Wait, I'm not done yet. Can I?
Exactly.
So
no.
It becomes internalized.
It becomes internalized. Letting go, you're just simply opening inside to what's causing you to contract. You can learn how to do that, just like you know how to open your hand. You just open your hand. Well, on some level, most of us have a fist in here, in our gut. And it's clenched shut.
Right.
But and
feels
all It feels that way often, yes. But once you realize that you have some control over opening that fist and allowing that energy to just flow naturally, as you get a sense of that, you can just see, my fist is getting tighter. And you don't even need to think about it. You can feel the fist getting tighter, and then you just do this inside.
It starts to loosen up.
Yeah.
Just the acknowledgement of it. Yeah, that's very powerful. I find myself, and I'm asking these questions for the benefit of our listeners who are hearing about this for the first time. In my experience in using the Sedona Method, what I find myself doing, and not as frequently as I would like, I almost said as I should, but I changed it to as I would like. I find myself right in the middle of the heat of things, just asking myself, just noticing that the feeling is there, just asking myself, can I let that go?
Yes.
And that's all it takes.
Right.
And it's not even articulated on that level. It's just, I'm verbalizing it, but I can feel that process going on inside of me. So it gets easier and more internalized over time.
Yes, definitely.
Very cool. This is really terrific insight and practice. It's refreshing. There are a lot of approaches, techniques, tools, etc., with lots of those big promises that we talked about in the beginning, and some of them are just seem kind of either inaccessible or too abstract to make use of. What I love about this approach is that it's very concrete, very easy to practice, and in my experience, it makes a huge difference. So, for people to get more information on what you're doing, we have a page set up, sedonamethod.com/Steve Farber. And I think there are...
Actually, it's Sedona.com.
Sedona.com?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get it right in the notes.
Okay, yes.
Sedona.com.
/Steve Farber.
You are so right. I'm looking at it right here. Sedona.com/Steve Farber. Wow, Sedona.com. That's a hell of a URL to get.
I know.
Man.
There's a whole story to that, but we don't have time for it.
I bet there is. Personally, I've got NewYork.com, but that's another story. No, so Sedona.com/Steve Farber. And there are lots of ways to engage and some great resources on there for you to avail yourself of. Hale, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
That's my pleasure.
And for all of y'all listening in, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, remember to do what you love in the service of people who love what you do, and then let it go.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.